Welcome to the Natural History Cupboard. Come on in.
And welcome back to the Natural History Cupboard podcast, the place where the weird and wonderful parts of the natural world come together. I'm your host, Gareth, and with me as always, trying to hold in a laugh, is Aaron. Aaron, how are we doing?
Oh,
wow.
rough. I'm doing rough, but all good. Well, you're still rough too, aren't you?
Well, yeah,
We're both under the weather.
Can't hear. Who needs it? Yeah. What have you been up to?
Lots actually. I've been birding. I've been fishing. Not fishing for just like
The compliments.
I've been watching the fish in the local river. Excuse me, as if to prove my point here.
It's dying.
I've been looking at fish in the river. I've seen what I think are two species. There's definitely trout, but the other one I'm not sure about. And yeah, I've been
Not tempted to jump in? Such lovely weather,
actually today. I thought I'm already ill. Why not just?
Oh yeah, what's a bit of hypothermia?
Let's just jump in. No, no, not really. Yeah, just been watching the birds and the fish in the local area. We've had red kites, we've had ravens.
Nice.
Obviously jackdaws. We get a lot of jackdaws here. Just kind of trying to fill the void left by my house martins leaving whilst I was still on the.
They're enjoying their African vacation.
They are, yeah.
Yeah.
They probably crossed paths with me as I was coming back and they were going. Yeah.
I've not done anything.
No,
No, I've
your
had a
turn
very
for
dull
effort.
week. No, I've literally, just been work as normal, which is around animals. So that's always nice. But no, nothing out of the ordinary. So
Fair enough.
should we just move on? I suppose.
Go into the rooms.
Let's do that.
It's the news.
Right, well, we're into this week's news. I'm going to start things off with a bit of a sad one. This one comes from the journalistic integrity that is Devon Live, but it's also on a variety of other ones, and also the British Marine Divers Rescue. I've also put this up.
So it's not anti-Cornish propaganda then?
No.
Okay.
It is quite sad news that a young fin whale stranded itself in Cornwall in Pentewan Sands the other day. The rescuers tried to obviously get it back out to sea, but it was just too weak, and unfortunately I don't think it survived the rest of the day. But I mean, in some ways good to see that we've got fin whale populations in the area. But
yeah,
we
do have fin whales around here. We just don't see them very often. Second largest animal on the planet. So my first article comes to us from Science Daily. A 540 million year old fossil is rewriting evolution. A Saltarella fossil from early Cambrian Canada is showing an odd method of skeleton formation.
Nice.
Saltarella's skeleton, being an invertebrate, is in the form of an external shell. It's constructed in two different layers, making it difficult to draw relationships to potentially related species. Upon analysis of this structure, its mineral preferences and form, and its habitat, researchers have now placed the species in the Cnidarian group, which has in turn shone a light upon how ancient species innovated in their shell designs.
Yeah. So also a prehistory or prehistoric one. This one comes from 21 Alive News Weather, which is an American small channel. Mattel toy dinosaur named after Purdue Fort Wayne professor. This is the rather cool story that James Farlow, who is essentially a ichnologist, someone who studies not ick, I suppose, but the footprints of prehistoric animals, or the fossilized footprints of dinosaurs. He had a dinosaur named after him called Phaloicnus, and he basically named this animal, which is already a big honor. But he had a friend of his, a fellow professor from the Canadian Museum of Nature, asking him if he knew that there was in fact a toy of this species, of which he thought, no, clearly not. But Mattel and their Jurassic World Chaos Theory line have made a Phyloicnus dinosaur toy that you can purchase. It came out this year, and so he was quite amazed to basically be able to get his hands on a toy of a dinosaur that I'd never even heard of this species either. But yes, you can see it. There is a brand new species of dinosaur that has got its own toy line, and I must admit, the Jurassic World ones, they do come out with some really cool like random species.
Yeah, there are some lesser heard names that I've noticed in shops, which is
good
cool.
job, Mattel.
Earth.com brings us my next headline. That scientists identify a dinosaur species that survived mass extinction 200 million years ago. A predatory species from India has been named Malaroraptor cutii. The animal lived about 200 million years ago. Anatomical analysis suggests it belonged to a branch of carnivorous dinosaurs closely related to, but not part of, the Herrerasaurids. This is a branch that survived the global extinction known as the Carnian pluvial episode.
Yeah, it's where it basically rained for millions of years.
Yeah, but not as good as the last episode of Andor.
I'm trying to think. Hang on, what did it rain for? The last episode.
It didn't rain in the last episode of Andor. I'm just saying that episode wasn't as good as the.
I mean, okay,
the episode kind of.
Fair enough.
I enjoyed Andor a lot more.
Fair enough. Yeah. So my next one comes from Cornwall Live. So we've moved to county now.
All right.
This is the interesting news of a raccoon being spotted in someone's garden on Thursday, November the 13th. This is spotted in Gwenap. Basically, this raccoon just was bumbling around someone's garden. There's quite a bit of video footage. It appears to be, I would say, an escapee as a pet.
Yes.
It's not come from a zoo or a wildlife park or anything. But just this evening, I was able to look at this. The actual animal has been given a home in a local wildlife centre that will basically keep it, for now until obviously it can go somewhere else. But yeah, for those of you who are interested, raccoons are obviously not native to the UK, and they are actually on a list of animals that are no longer allowed to be kept because they are covered by the European Invasive Species Act, so they can no longer be bred or housed. So if you are in a zoo in the UK, or if you go to a zoo in the UK and you see raccoons, those will be the last ones you see in the UK because they will soon be gone, which is kind of sad.
So my final article comes to us from the BBC. Once extinct wildcats to make comeback in England is the headline, and it's kind of not so much a follow-up, but a little bit of added information into what's going on in the wildcat world for us in the UK. So one of the most critically endangered species in the UK is continuing to eye a return to its former English range. As you probably no doubt know, we have them in Scotland, we just don't have them in England and Wales yet. Again, the Southwest Wildcat Project is aiming to bring 50 European wildcats to the Devonian landscape from 2028, which is not soon enough. The plans intend to continue the momentum of successful breeding and rewilding efforts in Scotland. So hopefully that will go ahead.
So that's it for our headlines for this week. But the main article, I wanted to bring you the troubling news of the terror that is, or the menace that is, Sir David Attenborough.
I can't even hear it with a straight face.
It's this, believe it or not, is an actual headline that has come up on the Telegraph. The menace that is Sir David Attenborough, which it's a laughable piece to read because it is written with a heavy bias, so heavy it could sink a ship. This essentially is about the story I think I brought a couple of weeks ago. about grouse moors where they are buying an estate, and Attenborough is helping to sort of publicize that whole thing, where BirdLife are trying to basically set up the area to be far better for wildlife. Well, this article does not like the fact that the menace that is Attenborough is roaming the countryside, making it unsafe for the poor, pheasant and grouse shooters. But in the Telegraph piece, Clive Aslett defends the preservation of traditional grouse shooting estates in the UK uplands and responds specifically to the Wildlife Trust and Sir David Attenborough's campaign to acquire and restore the Rothbury estate. He argues that the grouse moors are not barren monocultures, but landscapes that teem with bird life, much of it endangered. According to him, the richness is due to gamekeepers' predator control. It's those it's good, which is seen as a vital form of practical conservation. Definitely conservation. He warns that the transferring of such estates to conservation organizations risks subjecting them to bureaucratic management that could reduce the ecological value, undermine rural jobs, and diminish existing wildlife abundance. In short, the article points to grouse moors as privately funded conservation success stories. I know I'm trying to do it with a straight face as well. That modern environmentalism threatens to erase.
Mate, just that has made my brain.
That's your joke for this week, right there.
Melt.
So, what does the scientific evidence actually show? Well, you'll be shocked to know it doesn't really agree with this opinion. So the broader ecological research on upland grouse moor management tells a much more complex and very contradictory story. So the biodiversity in these areas has a narrow set of winners, not a rich ecosystem. With intensively managed moors, they may boast certain species, notably some waders and red grouse, but larger studies show that no consistent increase in overall species richness or diversity on grouse moors compared to other upland land use. So research in the Scottish Highlands found that more management changes which species dominate, but do not produce higher diversity overall. Many peatland specialists, plants, insects, and wet bog species are diminished by the burning and draining of, peat bogs. And in fact, this is a huge thing as well. Repeated heather burning, which is central to this intensive grouse management, has been shown in studies and government evidence. Basically, so this is not coming from the liberal loony left. This is coming from the government. It helps to reduce sphagnum moss, which is essential to peat formation in the future, increases peat erosion and carbon loss, and basically just letting tons of carbon into the atmosphere. It degrades bog habitat used by many other specialist species as well. Thus, the core ecological foundation of these moorlands, wet, healthy peatlands, is being harmed, and it just keeps drying out by precisely the practice used to maintain the grouse population, by burning the ground. Predator control. There are benefits for some birds, but it massively harms others. So predator control can increase breeding success of certain ground nesting species, but it produces a simplified ecosystem. And that's what I think some people like, is simplified ecosystem.
Simple things for simple minds.
A white page with 1 or 2 dots on it. There we go. Nice and simplified. Shaped around the needs of a single game bird. It suppresses natural predator-prey dynamics and broadly narrows wildlife communities rather than diversifying them. And probably the biggest problem is raptor persecution, with the strongest disproof of teeming wildlife around this. Perhaps the most striking evidence of contradiction of the claims made in the Telegraph comes from the GPS tracking and mortality studies of raptors. I mean, we hear about that all the time, where all these birds just turn up dead for some absurd reason and their GPSs have gone, Found that up to 75% of the annual hen harrier mortality in the UK is attributed to illegal killing associated with game bird management. So the RSPB Bird Crime Data Recording Unit has over 1,300 raptor persecution incidents in their books in the last decade, and many in or on near grouse shooting areas. I wonder why that is. A landscape that teems with wildlife does not require the persistent illegal removal of top predators.
Imagine claiming to be the bastion of conservation in the same kind of like in the same space as actively poisoning animals.
Yep. Yeah, well, it's management, Aaron. You don't understand.
Releasing
It's management.
57 million birds that go around killing adders, which are an endangered reptile.
They're evil.
Just
So
begs belief.
Scottish government and Natural England evidence reviews basically agree that grouse moors produced mixed ecological outcomes. Some benefits for a few species, significant costs for peatland health, carbon budgets and predators, and continuing concerns over illegal practices. And there are a lot of illegal practices that seem to go on. These reviews increasingly recommend regulatory reform, habitat restoration. Wonder why? Who would want to do that? And large landscape scale alternatives, not the status quo as is defended by Aslett. So the overall conclusion is Clive Aslett,
Moron.
now, portrays grouse moors as thriving, biodiverse, and ecologically essential landscapes threatened by the menace that is Attenborough and his lefty loony conservationists. But the scientific evidence shows somewhat different views. In fact, not views, actual facts. Intensive grouse moor management creates a narrow suite of wildlife winners. It's harmful to peatland conservation, contributes to substantial carbon loss, is strongly linked to illegal wildlife killing and the protection of birds of prey, and far from being the richest of most natural upland habitats, grouse moors represent a managed monoculture shaped by a single shootable species. Ecological research supports a move towards a broader, multi-species and peat restoring and legally compelling land stewardship program, not the preservation of the ecologically limited system built for commercial shooting and the status quo. So, yeah,
the moral bankruptcy is strong in this one.
So please be on the lookout.
Scientific, what's the word?
Hypocrisy?
Hypocrisy.
No.
The inability to understand it. Illiteracy, scientific illiteracy.
The Dunning-Kruger effect is in full effect there. So please be on the lookout for the menace that is Sir David Attenborough. Here he's roaming the countryside, kicking doors in, and just menacing grouse shooters. So be aware.
You have done well, my apprentice. The farming community will be no match for Darth Attenborough.
I'll try, yeah. Soon we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. Soon we will have revenge.
Oh, hang on. You painted the grouse shooters as Jedi there. Yo?
I'm not falling for the lies of the Jedi. Anyway, so should we move into our creature feature for this week?
It's the creature feature.
Right, well, we're into this week's creature feature. Aaron, what are we looking at?
Well, this week, Gareth, I want to talk to you about the most beautiful bird on the planet.
That's a strong claim.
Yeah, but I think this one is a shoo-in for it. It is a gorgeous bird.
I'll give you that. It's a gorgeous bird, but I don't think it's the most beautiful bird on the planet.
Certainly the most beautiful in Europe, then.
See, I don't know. I don't know.
Fair.
I'll come back to you with what I think might be my contender.
There are a lot of contenders for the most beautiful avian dinosaur, but this one, in my opinion, now I say it out loud, I'm starting to think the common kingfisher is very nice though. Anyway, it's also a bit of a shout out to a previous episode and a previous guest in David Silver at Creative Beast Studios, because without his referencing of the species for the Linharaptor exquisitus model, I'd not have looked into these a few years back and become such a keen fan of them. Of course, from that nod to the Beast of the Mesozoic line, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll have seen in the show's intro that I'm referring to the European bee eater. So straight off the bat, Gareth, the scientific binomial name is Merops apiaster. What do you think that means?
Well, apiaster is bee, so it's probably something like bee eater. Merops. No, drawing a blank on Merops. But it's something bee something.
It's bee eater.
Oh, well, there you go.
So Merops is ancient Greek and apiaster is Latin. So, it's about as an inventive name as gorilla.
Yep.
But what it lacks in interesting naming trends, it certainly more than makes up for in its appearance. This bird is extremely vividly coloured, with a brown and reddish topside, green and brown wings, stunning blue underparts, red eyes with a black kind of bandit mask across them, and a striking white stripe under that mask, separating it from the yellow of the throat. Very much like the as I say, limited edition Creative Beasts inspired Linharaptor here. There is an element of sexual dimorphism, not in the sizes of the individuals, which I'm about to cover, but in the coloration. Females appear to have green feathers on their shoulders, whereas males appear to have more golden feathers in that same location. I didn't know that originally until I started looking into it. During the breeding season, these colours are far more excitingly vivid, but they do dull down and lose the elongated tail feathers that the birds have when they move out of the breeding season. That being said, they're still stunning to behold even out of breeding season. They're still very colourful. It's just literally not quite as vivid. There's not quite the contrast. It's a small old world bird with a slender build, overwintering in central and southern Africa, but migrating to breed in much of central and southern Europe, as well as in Western Asia, actually. The only exception to this is a resident population in South Africa. Now, the birds themselves can reach lengths of 29 centimeters if you include the two elongated tail feathers that I spoke of during their breeding season, and of course if you include it right up to the tip of the beak, and they weigh just 78 grams at their most. So as I said, they're fairly dainty kind of bird. Now, if I could just hop back to that color change for a moment, the birds begin this molt in June, and this coincides with nest building activity. So they'll be starting to build their nests in June. They'll be starting to look more colorful in June, kind of pruning and preening themselves, ready to attract a mate. They're pretty gregarious, which often actually adds to their beauty. When you see a flock or a cloud of these colourful little birds, you'll often see them during this period feeding together in groups, and of course roosting together as they come back to the nest. They tend to also be seen, like you might see like a big group of them lined up on like electrical wires above, or on like fence wires, much like you'd see starlings. So it's really cool to see them like that, because it's just like a flashy blur of color there. They'll nest as a colony along sandy banks, and they'll excavate surprisingly long tunnels for such a small bird. European bee eaters are mostly monogamous, despite being so gregarious, and during courtship the male will treat his mate to regular meals, offering her the largest portions whilst taking the smallest ones for himself. And it's really nice to see them doing this. They'll often they'll sit they'll perch on something like a kind of outreaching twig, or on the top of a fence line, and he'll catch bees as they go past, or whatever he's catching, and then feed them to the female, who just kind of stands there and observes his predatory prowess. Now, once the building phase is complete on the nest, the female will lay up to 8 eggs, relatively ball-shaped and white in colour. The pair will share the care of the clutch for roughly 3 weeks. Now, on the subject of feeding themselves, though, for the most part, these meals consist of bees, wasps, and hornets, which are sort of the prey taxa that they kind of specialise in and where they take their name, obviously. Also, I promise the wasp consumption bit is not why I like these birds so much. It's actually one of the reasons I've grown to like wasps is by learning about bee eaters and the the interspecies interaction and behaviour that goes on. But they will eat other insects when opportunities arrive. The hunting technique is relatively simple and unimpressive. It just looks nice when you see them doing it in terms of courtship. They'll form a line, just like I mentioned, along like a perch of some kind, and it's almost like a firing line. And as insects fly by, these birds will basically pluck them out of the air. They barely move. There's no kind of jumping or anything. They just reach out and grab them. When one of their favourite 3 options are caught, the protocol is to repeatedly smash their catch against a hard surface, much like kookaburras did. They knock the fish or whatever we fed them, chicks and stuff.
Well, they do the same. All
Against
members
them.
of the kingfisher family do that.
They do, yeah.
Remember on these ones, don't they wipe as well to help knock the sting out?
That's exactly why they do it. They basically knock them side to side, and they as you say, they wipe, and this is to remove the sting against the hard surface that they're using. In a single day, one bee eater can consume upwards of, guess how many bees?
In a single day?
Single day.
I'm going to say 1,000.
1,000? Oh, wow, you went high.
I've gone really high there.
Yeah, it's actually a quarter of that. It's 250 bees.
Yeah, that's still pretty impressive.
Yeah. Its favourite prey and the most important prey menu entry is the European honeybee, which Gareth has covered previously so beautifully. Between 69.4% and 82% of the European bee eater's diet in Spain is comprised of European honeybees. This equates to about 1% of the worker bee population in the areas where the 2 species interact. That being said, an interesting study was found, or rather, I found an interesting study through sources listed on Wikipedia of all places, because at the bottom they show their references. And if you ever use any information on Wikipedia, it's always best to
check the sources.
Go back through and check the sources. It's good protocol. Anyway, this particular source that it referenced, and I went back to look at, actually cited European bee eaters predating on a mixture of dragonflies and bees. And the birds that can consume that mixture were actually able to convert food into body mass substantially more effectively than those that were on a bee-only diet.
So chunkier,
yeah. Well, I mean, look at dragonflies.
Yeah.
They can be huge. But basically, the key takeaway is that variety is the spice of life, I guess. This sole reliance on honeybees that results in less efficient body mass increases tends to be around areas where apiaries are situated. Here, the bees are far more abundant and they're a far easier food source because basically we build houses for them, and they're just.
Why would you?
They're there.
Why would you go anywhere else?
Yeah. But the bee eaters don't appear to actively actually seek out apiaries. In fact, they prefer to hunt the meadows within a 12-kilometer range of their colonial nesting sites. So it's not like just because there's an easy meal there, they will prefer to predate to hunt there. They'll actually still prefer to hunt in their kind of what they would have traditionally evolved to hunt on. Yeah. Now, the local apiaries only appear to be raided during prolonged colder or rainier periods when the wild insects are often less active and harder to predate upon. This has, of course, led to conflict with bee eaters who see the with beekeepers who see the bee eaters as a major threat to their livestock. Now, their theory is that the worker bees forage a lot less during months when the bee eaters are present. But, as is so often the case when farmers get upset with predators, science proves their assumptions wrong.
Well, I'd have thought as well, if it's in the winter months, the bees aren't going much further. The colony shrinks down in the winter. So there isn't as many going out and doing stuff anyway, so I don't think it would be that catastrophic.
My friend, you're making a grave error.
Oh dear.
in your conservative, in your attempts to get into the conservative mind. Never let a good fact get in the way of good propaganda.
These menaces, they're basically flying wolves.
Yeah, that's exactly what they see it as. But as I was saying, a study in Libya showed that the bee eaters' diet consisted 90.8% of honeybees. Also showed that worker bee forage rates were often higher when the birds were present, which is kind of in line with when you translate across that to mammals. There's a lot of prey species, mammalian prey species, that actually breed and do their kind of their ecological jobs much better when there is something like a snow leopard marauding around
Yeah.
somewhere, because I guess they feel the pressure to do
Yeah.
rather than what our red deer do in the UK. Anyway, in fact, the bee predation is far more likely to occur during swarming, migration, or queening, or where beehives are located under perching, from which the bee eaters can launch an energy-efficient assault, which is to say they'll drop down on them.
Ah.
It's again, European bee eater hunting is not that energetic, but yeah.
If it works, it works.
Unfortunately, this hasn't persuaded beekeepers to stop filling the European bee eater nests with rocks to prevent them from coming home to tend to their eggs. Because when has a fact ever changed the mind of an anti-predator farming?
Well, as we've just
party?
said in the news, even if you try and buy up an estate to try and solve that issue, people will still label you as the bad guy.
Yeah, yeah. During my European travels this year, this was actually species number 2 on my list of animals I wanted to see, only behind European wolves. I saw neither, of course, mostly because in hindsight I hadn't planned well enough, but their influence was present. We visited a museum in the same town as where the Ferrero factory is.
Oh, that could have been dangerous.
Yeah, well, it's a town called Alba. It wasn't dangerous because, well, maybe it was.
How much chocolate did you buy?
We parked up and we thought that the Ferrero factories here, it's going to be like Cadbury World. Maybe not any rides, but surely there's a shop there. So we walked for over an hour across this mountain to get to the Ferrero factory. We got there, we walked through the doors, and we were greeted. And we were like, "Oh, hi, where's the shop?" And they said, "We don't take visitors. There's no shop." And we were like, "Ah." And they said, "Have you walked here?" And we said, "Yeah, we walked here from the other side of the mountain." And they
I'm
said,
seeing like
"Mister and heat."
I'm seeing sort of a Lord of the Rings style, you traversing the Caradras, you're coming down, you've gone through Moria, you get to the other side, and Mordor's closed.
Yeah,
Sorry. I'm sorry, Mordor's closed for the week. You'll have to go back.
it was very much like the Wonka factory in that it's completely locked up to the public.
How many Oompa did they have?
We just walked through the staff entrance into their foyer, and yeah, but they felt bad for us, so we got pity for Rocher and pity Kinder eggs. By the
Here you
way,
go, now go.
Kinder is made by Ferrero. I didn't realize that. I know Nutella is, but I didn't realize Kinder was as well. So yeah, we got a pity chocolate. The manager there was very kind.
Silly English people. Go on your way.
Came to their factory shop, which we didn't know didn't exist.
There's this wonderful thing called the internet.
Well, on the internet, some idiot had put that there's a factory shop there.
I hope you corrected it.
Well, do you know we haven't? There's probably other
Well, there you
people
go.
that
Public service announcement. If you're anywhere in the mountains looking for a chocolate
If
shop,
you're in Alba, Italy, looking for the Ferrero factory's factory shop, there isn't one. Don't go there. The manager and the staff that did see us were very kind though, and the pity chocolate was good pity chocolate. We ate it quickly before it melted because that sun was unbelievable. It was one of the really hot days. It's like I believe you guys were having a heat wave here. Well, the heat wave there was insufferable. It was amazing. But yeah, give them their dues. they do seem to be making progressive steps, at least in terms of their sustainability as a company, even if not in terms of making a factory shop. But anyway, in this town's museum, which actually has a mastodon and a platybelodon, by the way, my first time seeing those two species, I finally got to see a real European bee-eater for the first time. It was dead and stuffed. Of course, was only fitted after the Ferrero Rocher accident or mistake, but still, I got to see a
But
European bee-eater.
by that count, then I've seen a pangolin when I was like 4.
Unfortunately, though, I never got to see a real life, in the flesh, living, breathing, and thriving European bee-eater, and I have to say that that's the only thing that I do feel some element of regret over not seeing. The wolves they were always going to be hit and miss. As it turned out, when we were in the range of there's
Turns out they were hiding in the Ferrero chocolate shop.
yeah, they're the workers. We went up into an area of the French Alps where the first mated pair of wolves came back in, naturally came back in. It's now an area which has something like 25 packs and 300 wolves.
Nice.
But when we got there,
zero chance of seeing
the heavens opened. It was raining cats and dogs, not wolves, unfortunately. So didn't get to see it. Thunder, lightning, everything. And I just said to Atta that there's no chance. They will bed down in this. There's no chance. So yeah, we didn't see the wolves, but they were hit and miss anyway. These ones, the European bee-eaters, I was sure I was going to see. But no, I do think I heard them in France, but at that time my brain didn't twig what was making that noise. It didn't make the connection. But I'll find it's something I want to actually go out and find if I do go back and do that again, which I would like to do. So yeah, there's the beautiful marvel that is the European bee-eater, which I think is well, I don't know. Than kingfisher, but it's one of the most beautiful avian dinosaurs.
I'm going to say I think that should be our question this week.
Okay.
What do you think is the most beautiful bird species out there? I'm going to venture to say
out there in Europe, or where people live, or just
globally.
Globally, okay.
I'm going to say I think European bird, and this probably can't be controversial, I think, but I think my favourite European bird for colour is not very colourful.
Okay.
That's the black grouse. Because it's black.
Yeah, I can see
jet
it.
black with that white and that little bit of flash of red. But it just looks stunning. Yeah,
knowing the black grouse, I would say that you could make an argument for it. It wouldn't.
It's not. I was going to say it was colourful, but yeah,
I don't think it would come into my. It might come into my top 5, but it wouldn't come into my top 3 in terms of beautiful birds. In terms of interesting birds, in European birds, maybe it would come into the top 3.
I think in my head, I've been going through a variety of different birds. I've come to the conclusion that I like a lot of birds that are just either black with a bit of colour on them, or really sort of like plain colours. I don't think I've got too many birds that are multicolored. But anyway, should we distill that further in our emails?
We shall. Yes, we shall.
Bing! You've got mail. Ooh, it's an email.
Right, well, we're into this week's emails, and I'm going to start off with last week's question, which was, what is your favourite species of spider? And you know what? I'm quite glad we got a few replies on this one.
Some interesting ones.
Yeah, there's some fun species, and I think some of the most spidery people that we know have certainly commented. So the first one we've got is Maria Malco. If including tarantulas, which we always certainly do, we would go. They would go with Ceratogyrus darlingii, which is the horned baboon spider, which I have actually had one of those. They're fun little spiders.
Yeah.
Love the horns on their carapace. If not including tarantulas, then Phidipius audax, a native jumping spider to my area.
Moving on, Portia Spear, who was kind enough to be one of our guests recently, said jumping spider Portia because duh.
Yeah, all right. I mean, yeah, I suppose she gets to have one that has the same name. My other half has put jumping spiders and can confirm she is a big fan of jumping spiders.
Epi Aurelius has said it's not possible to have a favorite as they're all so incredible, but I did learn about these recently. Urobalus carlii, a species of jumping spider that mimics a lichen moth caterpillar. Other honourable mentions are the Heteropoda David Bowie and
That's the David Bowie huntsman spider,
Yeah.
like orange in color.
Prephalpus Attenborough for their namesakes.
Yep.
You just mentioned one of them. The other one being the menace.
The menace.
The phantom menace of David Attenborough. How do you pronounce this one? Picilophyia?
No, you should know that one.
This
This is the fun of
Poecilophyria metallica. There we go. For
We've
the
done that
coloration and ravine trapdoor spider, Cyclosmia truncata, for having a really interesting adaptation.
Do you know what the Metallica is?
Mate, that just trying to read the name of that has taken it out, mate.
Pothecilia, or a pokey is the other one, or P. Metallica as it's referred to in the sort of tarantula pet trade.
Wow, that's the
If I was to tell you it's bright blue in color.
I know which one you're talking about. You covered that one.
Yes,
didn't
I have. It's
Yeah.
the Gooty ornamental.
you? Yeah.
So
A very cool looking spider.
they are. I mean, that's a good list. So Phil Barber, too many to choose from. I had a feeling he probably would say that.
Another person who was kind enough to guest
Yes,
host
and
with us.
has many spiders himself. From the ones I currently keep, he's got Brachypelma bohemii, Polythecea metallica, and Therisophoa sturmii. So 3 really nice species of tarantula there. I also love Trichonophilia clavapsis, Hogna ignis. That's a species of wolf spider. Birups. Oh God, you've done this, Phil, just to get me to try and read some of these. Birups, Simaraxagorium,
Cimaroxagorum. Nice.
Typhona Clinia, Celidonia, and Dolomedes platerius. Okay, I like the Dolomedes.
If you're
spider.
just tuning in, we're talking about spiders
We're not
and their
trying to
Latin
summon Cthulhu or anything. But the Dolomedes is a fishing spider. I like fishing
names.
spiders.
I need to look into that. That
They're
sounds cool.
Yeah. Knew I couldn't just pick one. All spiders are epic, and I think he's right there.
He is correct. So Stephen Eddy says currently Heteropoda venatoria and any spider I find in my house.
And finally, we've got Spencer Seams, the Indian cooperative spider. They are the ultimate mothers. Also, the African social spiders too.
Both of those species are cool.
So that was last week's question. This week's question, I think you've hit the nail on the head with a good question unintentionally as well. Is what, in your opinion, is the most aesthetically appealing species of bird in the world? So I think you've obviously gone for your one. You've nailed your colours to the mast.
That's for Europe. If we're going globally, I mean, it would still be up there, as would common kingfisher. But there's almost too many to choose from. Even like as vanilla and maybe even cliche as it is to say, the Indian peacock is stunning.
Yeah.
The Argus pheasant, also very cool kind of story behind the Argus pheasant. But there's one that someone put up ages ago when we were talking about parrots. Do you remember it? It's like I don't know if it was like Dracula or Blade or vampire parrot.
Vampire parrot.
Thing. That thing's
Pestilence
awesome.
parrot.
I think so. It's in red.
Yeah,
that was really cool. So yeah, it's difficult to say when you take it global. It's easier for me to think about the most beautiful one in Europe or the most beautiful one in Africa. Split it up like that.
Yeah. And it is also down to your opinion as well. Because one person's very pretty looking bird is another person's boring sparrow.
I imagine that someone from America is probably going to say something about hummingbirds.
They're quite nice.
Quite a few beautiful hummingbirds. But yeah.
Do you know some of the really nicest ones? I think South America's got some very nice ones. You've got the Andean cock of the rock. You've got the resplendent quetzal.
Yeah.
You're just laughing at Andean cock of the rock, aren't you?
Yes.
Childish. Even waterfowl as well. There's a lot of ducks that look pretty good.
Hmm,
Eider ducks as well.
they're cool.
They've got such a smooth look to them.
And also that contrast. Why do you have to name birds so badly?
No, it's not named badly. People have just gone and used that word now and made it something else. It always stood for male bird.
Eider
That's
ducks.
where the word cockerel comes from.
Of course it is. Yeah, I know that came first, but like it's almost as if it's done purposefully ever since. I don't know.
Tits. There are loads of good tits. And boobies. The blue-footed
The
kind.
eider ducks. The eider duck is that pure white contrasted against that jet black. It's very appealing.
If anyone's
It's
looking for a
not-
good Christmas present, there are quite a few good mugs out there that have got rude bird names on, which are always worth getting.
I think I saw eider ducks in the wild in Iceland.
They are quite cool.
Mm.
I'm gonna say red-tailed black cockatoo, because it's that lovely on the males. It's jet black, and then those red tail feathers that
Mm.
just stand out. Really, really pretty bird, and it's sort of subtle, but also striking as well. So, but yes, Andean cock of the rock as well. It looks like you've cut half an orange and stuck it on the top of a bird, and it makes Aaron want to laugh. So why not? So let us know your favorite, most aesthetically pleasing species of bird in the comments on our Facebook page or on the comments of this video, and we will have a look at those. But well, that pretty much brings us.
Just imagining that people are now going to purposefully comment like badly named birds just so that I
Badly
have to
named?
just so that I have to read them out.
Well, there you go. There's another reason to comment. Add all of the rudest bird names you can, and we'll read them out. So, and you can obviously do that on our Facebook page, but you can also get in contact with us by sending us an email or a comment in the comments below. Email address is thenathistorykcupboard@gmail.com. Aaron, we got any emails this week?
We do, but we've also got a YouTube comment. So which would you like first?
Go with the YouTube comment.
Okay, good, because that's the one I had open.
There you go. It's good because you didn't get the choice.
This one comes to us from Rosalie9961, who commented on our previous episode.
Spiders.
Exactly, to say, for this week's episode, or for this week's question of favourite spider, I'm going more based on types rather than specific species, which is an interesting way to approach the question, actually. I really enjoy jumping spiders and tarantulas, two groups that have been very popular, I think. Jumping spiders just have this really cute sort of feel to them. I would give them many sweets if they were people. And tarantulas just have a soft spot in me. Like I've said before, I once had a tarantula, and so those giants of the spider world are very dear to me. Yeah, they're both were very popular groups, actually. With that, I think I can see why. Jumping spiders, especially, very cool, very cool. Okay, so flipping over to our emails. Our email for this week comes to us from Shane, or Big Pumba. He says, "Good morning, gents. Big Pumba here. I took I took on playing catch up on episodes. The site I'm working on has a rule of no headphones on site because, can't have a shred of enjoyment in the mundane workday
Nope.
of a building site.
Don't you dare enjoy yourself.
Favorite African dinosaur." So we're going back a little bit. As he says, he's catching up. Favorite African dinosaur, Nigersaurus.
Nice.
Good call out.
The Cretaceous Hoover.
Weird out shovel face, perfect for fitting as much scoff in its face as possible, like myself. I have two questions this week. One natural history and one for Aaron, as I believe he works with dogs. I know that's not strictly natural history, but still, if not appropriate, I understand. I fed the birds all through spring this year, and I can actually notice that I boosted starling numbers in the area.
Cool.
At first, we had about 12 starlings. I'm pretty sure they had 2 clutches this year, as youngsters just kept coming all different sizes. I know birds tend to go off feeders in the summer months, but coming into winter, what's the best things to put out? I want to attract a variety to the garden. It looks pretty bleak out there since the wildflowers have died off. So we'll tackle that one first.
Oh God. I think I suppose identify what birds you've got coming to the table, and then just get as many different varieties of seeds and things. I think the biggest thing is not so much what you're feeding them, but just being consistent with feeding them. Because if they become reliant on that food and you don't do it for a week, then obviously in the harshest parts of winter, they're going to be, looking for food and they're not going to find it. And for a lot of small birds in the UK and in Europe, in the middle of winter time, finding that food can be a day's worth. And if they don't get that, they'll be dead by the next day because they live on a razor thin sort of like amount of energy that they need per day. So yeah, I would say I suppose it doesn't really matter because you could go all in and buy all sorts of really expensive seed and everything, or you could go really dirt cheap. But the biggest things are, I would say, being consistent. And now we're starting to come into what I would consider the bird flu season, which is wintertime, is making sure that if you are feeding stuff out, that you're keeping it all clean to stop the spread of any bacteria or viruses from bird to bird transmission, because your feeding station is basically drawing in birds from all around the place, and that can be a vector for diseases passing on.
Yeah, I think I'd try and keep the amount of food. I try and work out eke out how much leftover there is, and try and bring that leftover down so there's not so much like left hanging around for a long period of time, and sterilize so that you can sterilize it like after it's been used before you set up
a new one.
More food.
It probably pays if you're gonna. I mean, you can spend hundreds of pounds on any of these sort of things. It probably pays to have multiple sort of bird feeder
Stations.
cages and like bowls and trays,
Yeah.
so you can swap them out to clean them between feeds, and you can do it each day, or you could set like those ones up that have like an amount inside of a feeder. But just for your own sort of sanity, it's the reason I don't feed birds in my garden anymore, because we're back onto a wood. We get far too many squirrels and rats coming and just raiding it. And so I've stopped feeding as much as I used to because it was just all going to waste. And then all that was happening is the cats from next door were coming in and scaring the birds away as well. So I try and provide as much food by having as many plants that are edible to things, and having as many insects in the garden as possible, trying to help that way. But obviously this time of the year it doesn't help a great amount, but I've noticed that we still get a lot of long-tailed tits and blue tits and great tits coming into the garden and plucking at cobwebs and things in and around the bushes. So they're still finding food there.
So you could almost go to avoid like the bird flu problem. You could almost go away from active feeding through the bird feeders to passive feeding by ensuring that you have plenty of habitat for things like spiders and other insects around.
Because there's going to be limited insects this time of the year.
Yeah. That may involve having some winter flowering plants.
Yeah,
that the bugs will be eating.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, on that note, I looked out the bedroom window this morning and I looked to the right and I looked to the left of our garden. You had a big
vulture on your fence.
Yep, huge thing. Couldn't get rid of it. Zebra carcass in the garden for some reason. I don't know why. It was Attenborough been out there.
Menace something.
No,
Sir Menace.
I noticed that the garden to the right and the garden to the left of me, even though they are just normal gardens, the one to the right is a lot more just a functional garden because they have two kids and it's just a patch of grass effectively, with the trees at the back, the woodland, so they've overgrown a bit, brown, and the grass is mud because kids. The other side, they're a larger family, larger garden, but it's very decked and like paving stoned and everything, very manicured. Still brown, not the grass, because the grass is a lot more manicured, but the general sort of garden is looking a lot more brown because all the plants and everything have died off. It's the winter. You look out into my garden, most of the plants there are evergreen, not pines or anything like that, but eucalypts and lots of Australian and New Zealand species that I picked for the fact that they were good insect food for stick insects and various different things, are all still green. My garden looked just a splash of green in amongst a field of brown, and it made me feel really happy to see that mine is still green and alive, even though it's winter and everything else looks brown and drab.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing because of that, there are still more things making use of those plants in that garden. So that might be a way to try and do it, is alter what plants are in your garden that become more insect food. The fuchsias have still got loads of flowers on them at the moment, so providing pollen for any pollinators that want to get a last bit of energy before sort of shutting down in the winter.
Yeah.
We've got rockeries, we've got a hibernaculum. Not that I think we've got anything using it, but and that little pond at the bottom of the garden as well. So all places where you'll find insects perfect for birds to come along and eat. But yeah, it's how much you want to do and spend time and money wise, I guess, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, rambling one there, but yeah, there's your answer.
So he continues, dog-related question. I have a just turned 1 full of beans male Labrador called Cooper. He's the best boy. Couple of behavioral issues with nervousness and fearful reactivity, but we are working with a trainer and he's doing really well. My question is geared to breed-specific training and your opinion on it. He was going to gun dog training to build confidence and our bond. I have no intention to take him shooting, as blasting grouse out of the sky with the jolly good show old bean crowd isn't my thing.
Get your tweed.
You mean you do not subscribe to the menace of rather to David Attenborough being a menace? Anyway, but would you say allowing our dogs to channel the behaviours they were bred for is a good thing in a modern world? Thoughts? He does love his dog training. However, it's on hold until he remembers. Oh yeah, when Dad calls, I got to come back and not till in the fox poop. Have a great week, everyone. Stay wild. Big love. Big Pumba. Right. There's a couple things to unpack there, and I'm going to do this as quick as I can because really, I
need more by the hour.
I just need a bit more information on a couple things. But the easiest thing to tackle quickly is, you said that last sentiment sounds like you're having a bit of trouble with recall. So essentially, what you need to do is make yourself a banana, a bit of a not a banana, a
Make yourself a
bonanza,
banana.
a bit of a party. So when you're training for like calm stuff, you keep your voice nice and calm. But when you're training for recall, you have to be the most exciting thing there, even if it's a turd.
You've got to be more exciting than fox poo.
You got to be more exciting than a dog turd, yeah, a fox turd. So just keep that in mind, okay? Maybe that means that you screech his name really like kind of high pitched and excited, and then when he looks at you, that's when to say good boy, and then you run in the opposite direction, and then he thinks he's missing out, so he runs after you, and then massive reward when he gets to you. So that's just a quick thing. Then you said about, do we think that allowing our dogs to channel the behaviors they were bred for is a good thing in the modern world? You also said,
I think
is my question is geared towards breed specific training, your opinion on it. So one thing I will say is, I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, but my experience is that the difference between individual dogs is larger than the difference between breeds. So you have a Labrador, did you say? I think you said Labrador. My phone's locked now.
Labrador.
I think you said Labrador.
Well, as far as I'm aware, they were bred for catching, well, not catching fish, but retrieving fish because of their gentle nature when it came to picking things up by people in Canada, in Labrador, in Newfoundland. So, yeah.
That's where they get their name from. I actually didn't know that they were for fish. I thought they were for ducks.
Yeah, well, that's
going into water still.
That seems to be where
they were shot.
That seems to be where it's sort of then become an English thing. Is we're very good at blasting things out of the sky and get the dog to get it. But on that note, actually, one of the weirdest things I've looking back now, it doesn't really fit with me. But I went to a falconry thing at a was it the British Countryside Alliance, whatever it is,
Oh,
basically
yeah.
hunting people.
Yeah.
But falconry kind of falls into that. So but
Well,
they
people
did.
still hunt. Some people still hunt with their falcons.
To be honest, it was kind of a fun day out because I did get to shoot some antique shotguns, which
Oh, yeah.
was just hilarious because these things had blasting caps on them. They were that old.
Wow.
But one of the things they did have there was like gun dog trials where they had these weighted rubber ducks and geese that were flung by like a big catapult
Like a
out.
trebuchet.
Yeah, basically whipping them out into a lake for gun dogs to go and retrieve. Obviously, that's not shooting a duck out of the sky or anything.
No.
It's just a retrieval game for the dog that likes water. So I think as a breed specific trait, I mean, you probably wouldn't ask a Dachshund to do it or a Chihuahua to do it
No.
because they'd fall in the water and the
No.
duck would eat them.
Yeah.
But I think for a Labrador, it's a good bit of fun.
You can get what you want from any dog breed if you train it that way. Obviously,
I want to see a Chihuahua trained as
Chihuahuas,
a sheepdog.
Obviously, when it gets to like actual, so I'm talking mentally. If you
Yeah.
want to talk physically, I mean,
Has Babe taught us anything?
there are a few dogs that can pull a sled the way a husky can. The muscle build is different, but the mentality, the difference between dogs is greater than the difference between breeds. So I would say if it's got a game like that, there's no harm in it. The one thing I would say about that game though is if you are having trouble with your recall,
Yeah.
fling in something that is super interesting far away from you at speed is not the way to build good recall. You might want to
You've
hammer
also got to
home the
take a
recall
catapult
first.
with you everywhere you go.
Yeah, there's one thing that when I was dog training regularly, I just don't understand why my dog doesn't come back to me. And the first thing I ask is about their dog toys, and if they've got that plastic arm with the cup, and you put the
Oh,
tentacle
yeah.
in, you fling it like 16 miles down Woolacombe Beach. That's why your dog's not coming back to you because the ball it wants is over there and not in your pocket. So yeah, I would work on the recall first before you think of doing any like
Or get a boomerang.
breed specific. That
Comes back
might
to you.
work. That might, if you learn how to throw it. Yeah, so that's I think that's probably the best way I can kind of concisely answer that.
Get yourself a trebuchet or a boomerang and go from there.
Yeah.
Or move to Canada and catch fish. I don't know. None of these help, but why not? Anyway, another way you can get in contact with us and probably get a slightly less sensible answer than that is to become one of our Patreons. So, well, let's talk about them here, shall we?
Every week, we like to give a little love back by shouting out the names of our wonderful Patreon supporters.
That's right. These are the cupboard dwellers who are kind enough to support us through a monetary contribution, for which we are eternally grateful and grateful beyond words.
And those people are, of course, Fogtober, Jen Greenhall, Connie P, Chelsea McKee, Nick to Nick,
Owen Cox,
and Matt Geddy.
Guys, your financial contributions are actively helping us out here in the Natural History Cupboard in a myriad of ways, including developing our new studio, planning excursions and being able to go out and film on location, considering technical upgrades and actually making the jump from a solely audio-based podcast to the now growing YouTube channel. And we really can't thank you enough for that.
Now, we appreciate all of our cupboard dwellers and the support you offer us through listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing. But if you feel we've earned it and you're considering joining our Patreon, there are two options through which you can do so.
That's the Nature Nerds and the Animal Ambassador tiers, which you can find on the Patreon website or links through our social media as well. And each one having different benefits for you to enjoy.
And now back to Gareth and Erin in the studio.
So that's our wonderful Patreons. Massive thank you to you guys. And that pretty much brings us to the end of this episode. So big thank you, Aaron. It's been unbelievable. You watch out now as well for the menace that is Sir David Attenborough out there. In fact, I'm fairly certain I saw him at the window a minute ago.
I will be looking out into the fields,
He'll be attacking anyone in
attacking
tweed.
farmers with a double-bladed lightsaber.
Darth Attenborough. And a massive thank you to you at home. And we'll see you next time here in the Natural History Cupboard. Bye.
Bye. So Gareth, it's my turn this week to do the bad joke of the week.
Yep.
Why do European bee-eaters migrate from Africa?
I don't
Why
know.
do they fly from Africa?
I don't know.
It's just too far to walk.
A menace. You are a menace.
Then I'm in good company.